Next category being awarded tonight is a big one. It's the Lifetime Achievement category, and tonight, the inductee is a true legend.
In 1923, M.T. Johnson Jr. was born into a legendary Amarillo ranching family. His father, Hap, was a star football player in Oklahoma, and M.T. followed suit. A starting quarterback at Amarillo High, he led the Golden Sandies to their last state championship in 1940 before moving on to the U.S. Naval Academy, lettering in football and golf, before graduating and serving at the end of World War II. After the war, M.T. returned to the family ranch and became well known as an honest and prominent businessman, developing real estate, starting a bank, and managing the Amarillo livestock auction were among his pursuits, while serving on the school board for 15 years during the delicate years of desegregation, proved to be among his most sublime of successes. Among his many passions was golf. He had a lifelong affiliation with Amarillo Country Club, where he served as president, as well as prominent clubs around the world, including Castle Pines and the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews. In 1980, he was nominated to serve on the executive committee of the USGA and became its first secretary. The 10th Texan to serve on the committee, and first from the Panhandle, he was influential in convincing the USGA to hold 6 of its championships in Texas. His impact on amateur golf while at the USGA and RNA can't be overstated. At the RNA, he served on their rules committee and was a highly respected ambassador for American golf and the state of Texas. At the USGA, MT pioneered the slope system, allowing handicaps to become truly portable from club to club. No longer would a player from a difficult club have an inherent advantage over a player with a similar handicap from a significantly easier club. The same year that he authored the Slope Report, MT was honored with the Byron Nelson Award from the North Texas PGA. At that point, already a proven winner in the U.S. Senior Golf Association, MT accumulated an impressive number of plates for his USSGA wins. Those plates reside at the home of his grandson and namesake, Montford Johnson Wagner, who plays on the PGA Tour and proudly displays the dignity and sportsmanship that has made the Johnson clan an integral part of the American tapestry for 8 generations and counting.
Ladies and gentlemen, representing M.T. Johnson Jr. is his grandson, Johnson Wagner. Johnson, please come to the stage.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, everybody. Thank you to the Texas Golf Hall of Fame. Thank you to Mr. Rayburn Tucker for being such an advocate of my grandfather, MT, and really pushing his way into the Hall of Fame. My whole family thanks you so much, and thank you to my family as well for giving me this great honor. MT was such a legend in our family, such a legend in Amarillo, such a legend in golf. It's actually quite moving to be up here to actually get to talk about him. The video mentioned a lot of my speech, but as it said, he was an incredible athlete. MT was a high school football star, winning the state championship in Amarillo and also being an all-state quarterback. He then went to the University of Oklahoma U, Boomer Sooner, and before heading to the Naval Academy to letter in both golf and football. MT, why we're here tonight, is because he was involved in so many of golf's most important administrative bodies. He was president of the Trans-Mississippi Golf Association. He served on the RNA Rules Committee, and MT was so proud of being a member of the USGA's executive committee, just to name a few. Now, as part of the USGA, MT was a walk-in official at most of its national championships for a number of years. And I'm going to share a story tonight from the 1985 U.S. Open where he made somewhat of an infamous ruling. This is the Dennis Watson Oakland Hills U.S. Open just outside of Detroit, Michigan. It was commonly known, Dennis Watson lost the U.S. Open that year by 1 shot. I always heard the story that the penalty was on Sunday, but the story goes like this. Dennis Watson had a par putt on the 10th hole, or excuse me, on the 8th hole of the first round on Thursday. It was a 10-foot par putt. He's putting it up the hill. Ball stops right on the edge of the cup. He sits there, walks up to the cup. Elk, you've never walked up to a cup and been like, oh my gosh, how's this thing not fall in? Well, apparently Dennis waited a little too long. The putt fell in after 35 seconds, and my grandfather, MT, who was a real stickler for the rules, came up and said, Mr. Watson, that's a 2-shot penalty. I think words were exchanged shortly thereafter. It didn't go well for either, but Dennis ended up playing well the rest of that tournament, ended up losing by 1, and I think pretty soon after that tournament, the USGA decided to create a 1-shot penalty for a ball dropping in after 10 seconds, so that was interesting. Yeah, he was a real stickler for the rules, and gosh, I'm mumbling here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous tonight. My brother wouldn't let me have any alcohol before I got to speak. So if anybody's got a shot of vodka, I'd be happy to take it. Okay. Anyway, I learned at an early age that MT was such a fan of the game of golf and so into the rules of the game and how you conducted yourself when you played the game that I learned really young that it wasn't important how you played, but it's how you conducted yourself. And MT truly embodied the saying that golf is a gentleman's game. And I've been fortunate to play golf all over the world with my profession, and I find it amazing how many times someone has come up to me and told me that they knew my grandfather, MT. They usually say the typical, MT was such a great man. MT genuinely loved the game of golf. But those conversations always end with, and he was a real character, which he was. If anybody knew MT, he was a tough one. I've got a story from the Masters. He was officiating the Masters. I think most of the 80s, he was an official at the Masters. And this was probably 84, 85. Fred Couples was a young man. MT was also a evacuation shuttle driver. So there's a big rain delay, dumping rain. A bunch of players, caddies, are all huddled under some sort of shed, something to keep them dry. MT backs the van up real tight to the thing. All the players and caddies jump in the van. Except one. Freddie Couples is back there at 24 years of age, waving MT back to back up further because he didn't want to get out and get wet. And MT would not have that. MT looked back, gave him this kind of signal, and just gunned it. Next thing he knows, he turns back in the mirror, and here comes Freddie Couples at 24 years old, sprinting after the van. MT slammed on the brakes. Freddie jumped in. I think they had a chuckle, became fast friends right after that. I may be a little biased, but I think the greatest accomplishment of MT's life was the family he left behind. He had 4 incredible children, with my mom, Betty, of course, being the most fantastic. My Aunt Margaret and her husband, James, assisted Mr. Raven Tucker through the induction process, and their children are here tonight as well. Missing tonight are MT's son, Monty, and his daughter, Berkeley. We are all so proud of what MT did during his life. We are also honored that he's been remembered in perpetuity through the induction into the Texas Golf Hall of Fame. Thank you all so much.